let's talk about something that never gets discussed in polite company. A psychological schism so vast, so fundamental to understanding human connection, that to ignore it is to navigate a minefield blindfolded. I'm not here to give you tired dating advice. I'm here to give you a master key. A key built from observable reality, from behavioral data, from the patterns that repeat across centuries of art and literature and private behavior. This isn't about manipulation. This is about comprehension. It's about recognizing that what is stated and what is secretly hungered for often exist in two separate, opposing dimensions. And for anyone, man or woman, seeking genuine, magnetic, unstoppable connections, bridging that gap is not optional. It's essential. Before we take the first step, do me a favor. If you're ready to look beyond the surface, to see the architecture of desire for what it really is, hit that like button right now. It's more than a thumbs up. It's a signal that you're choosing to see the world as it is, not as you've been told it should be. Subscribe and turn on notifications, because what we're building here is a foundation, and this is just the first stone. Part 1. The public script versus the private library. We begin in the most innocuous of places, a bookstore. Specifically, a section that drives billions in sales, a sector of publishing kept afloat almost entirely by one demographic: women. The romance and erotic fiction section. This is not a niche. This is a gargantuan industry. And it is here, in the pages of bestsellers, that we find our first glaring piece of evidence in the disconnect between public proclamation and private consumption. Consider the most explosive publishing phenomenon of the last 2 decades. A series that sold over 150 million copies globally. The plot. A naive, young woman is systematically drawn into a world of controlled dominance by a wealthy, obsessive, psychologically complex man. The content involves consensual power exchange, bondage, and a total surrender of control. The audience? Overwhelmingly female. These books were read openly on subways, discussed in book clubs, turned into major motion pictures. The public conversation around them was often framed in terms of exploration or escapism. But the core narrative is undeniable, a story of intense, psychological, and physical domination. Now, conduct a simple thought experiment. Approach a group of modern, educated women and ask, do you desire a relationship where a man controls your schedule, dictates your attire, and dominates you sexually? The public response would be swift and severe. The very suggestion would be labeled regressive, dangerous, misogynistic. And yet, the same thematic core generated billions in revenue from that very demographic. This is not an anomaly. It is a symptom. The genre has evolved, diving deeper into the shadows. The new frontier is monster romance. We are not speaking of metaphor. We are speaking of explicit, detailed narratives where female protagonists engage with vampires, werewolves, orcs, demons, and creatures from myth. These are not stories of chaste love. They are stories of possession, of being claimed by something powerful, primal, and other. This genre has thousands of titles, dedicated fandoms, and algorithms that feed its growth. It is a multi-million-dollar shadow industry. Why? What is the psychological draw? The civilized, modern partner, emotionally available, egalitarian, respectful, is not the fantasy. The fantasy is the undomesticated, the being that operates on a different set of rules, the entity that does not negotiate, but takes. It represents a raw, unfiltered masculinity that society has systematically trained out of the modern man. The monster is ID, instinct, power without apology. And in the safe, controlled theater of a woman's mind, where she is the ultimate author and curator, this is not threatening. It is exhilarating. This is the first brick in our foundation. The fantasy life does not mirror the stated ideal life. It often directly contradicts it. And if you are not subscribing yet, you are missing the blueprint. Hit that button. Part 2. The Digital Confessional, What the Data Reveals. Let us move from the world of curated fiction to the raw, anonymous data of online behavior. Here, the mask of social performance falls away completely. We are talking about consumption patterns on the largest adult entertainment platforms in the world. The statistics published in their annual reports are a public, unflinching ledger of true desire. The data shows a seismic shift. Female viewership is no longer a marginal footnote. It represents a massive and growing segment of the audience, nearing one-third of all traffic in some demographics. This in itself is a social revolution. But the critical insight lies not in the fact of consumption, but in the nature of it. What are the most searched and viewed categories among female users? If we listened only to the public narrative, we would expect Tinder, romantic, sensual. The data tells a different story. Consistently, analytics reveal high engagement with themes of power exchange, submission, and controlled force. Categories that center on dynamics of dominance and surrender see disproportionate female traffic. The search terms themselves paint a picture of a fascination with being overwhelmed with the loss of control in a consensual context. This is not a judgment. It is a data point. And data is neutral. It tells us what is, not what should be. The private behavior, when anonymity is guaranteed, diverges sharply from the public persona. This creates a framework for understanding. There exists a public self and a private self. The public self is a social actor. It navigates the workplace, social media, family gatherings, and political discourse. This self champions values of equality, mutual respect, and partnership. This self is real, and its desires for dignity and agency are authentic and non-negotiable. Then there is the private self, the erotic self. This self emerges in solitude, in the dark, in the secret theater of the mind. This self is not concerned with social justice, political correctness, or public image. It is concerned with sensation, with narrative, with primal triggers. This self can be wild, dark, and drawn to taboos precisely because they are taboo. It operates on a symbolic, psychological level. The fatal error most people make is believing the public self is the only self, or the real self. The master key is understanding that both are real, and intimacy is granted only to those who are invited to communicate with the private self. This is a crucial inflection point. If this is making sense, if it's connecting dots you've seen but couldn't name, comment duality below. Let me see you're paying attention. Part 3. The archetypal blueprint, beauty, the beast, and the cycle. This duality is not a modern pathology. It is etched into our oldest stories because it echoes a deep psychological truth. Let's deconstruct the archetype, beauty, and the beast. It is a story told to young girls for centuries. Why does it endure? The surface lesson is, don't judge by appearances, true love is within. But the psychological undercurrent is far more potent. Beauty is not captured by a kind farmer or a gentle prince. She is taken to a castle owned by a beast. He is terrifying, volatile, powerful, and possessive. He commands a kingdom but lacks humanity. The story's magic is not that she tames him through scolding or negotiation. The transformation begins when she sees the power and the vulnerability. She is not attracted in spite of his ferocity. His ferocity is the initial magnetic pull. It represents a strength so absolute it does not require her approval. Her compassion and love are the catalysts for his change, but the attraction is rooted in the primal reality of the beast first. The crucial, often missed sequence is beast-love-transformation. Not nice guy-love-happily ever after. The fantasy is the taming of the powerful, the civilizing of the savage, being the unique source of solace for a dangerous force. This is the core of the bad boy phenomenon. He represents undomesticated masculinity, risk, and the excitement of the edge. The attraction is visceral, biological, and operates below the level of conscious approval. But here lies the tragic, repetitive cycle that destroys relationships. Once the beast is tamed, the fantasy often dies. When the dangerous man becomes a safe boyfriend, when the unpredictable partner becomes predictable, when the challenge is solved, the very qualities that sparked intense attraction evaporate. He is no longer the beast. He is just a man. The private self becomes bored. The search for a new challenge, a new dynamic of tension, begins. This is not cruelty. It is the mechanics of a desire system built on arousal through contrast, safety versus danger, control versus surrender. The ancient strategist understood this human restlessness perfectly. He observed that desire is never static. The attainment of one object immediately clears the way for desire for the next. In relationships, this manifests as the shift from the thrill of the chase to the comfort of possession, often followed by a decline in intense passion. The man who understands this does not fight it. He learns to reintroduce the elements of the archetype, challenge, mystery, controlled power, within the context of a committed bond. He must learn to be both the prince and the beast, and know when each is required. Part 4. Integration, the art of navigating the polarity. So, what is the practical application? How does one interact with this duality without becoming a caricature or crossing ethical lines? This is the delicate, masterful art. It requires emotional intelligence, calibration, and a fundamental understanding of consent. The goal is not to be a monster. The goal is to embody the symbolic energy of the beast within the ethical framework of the prince. Women desire the simulation of danger, not actual danger. They are drawn to a man who possesses the capacity for raw power, force, and dominance, but who chooses to exercise control, direction, and protection. It is the difference between a loaded gun on a table, chaotic, terrifying, and a skilled warrior's sword in its scabbard, calm, confident, potent. Both have power, but one is controlled and therefore safe to be near. This translates to demeanor, communication, and physicality. In communication, the public self responds to negotiation and explicit verbal consent, which is mandatory for actual life decisions and the initial stages of physical intimacy. The private self responds to implication, tone, and confident assumption. It is the difference between, "May I kiss you now?" speaking to the public self, and locking eyes, lowering your voice, and saying, "I'm going to kiss you," an invitation that speaks to the private self, while still allowing the public self a clear path to refusal. In physicality, the public self's handbook says, "Always be gentle, always ask." The private self often responds to firm, assured touch. It reads hesitation as insecurity and confident, controlled force as passion. This is about reading body language, not just listening to words. Her words may say, "Slow down," but her body arching into you, her breath catching, tells the real story. The master learns this language. In frame, the modern, domesticated man seeks approval. He apologizes for his desires, negotiates for his needs, and seeks permission to lead. The integrated man operates from a core of unshakable self-assurance. He does not lead by committee. He observes, decides, and acts. He is not nice. He is decisive. He does not seek to be validated by her. His validation is internal. This internal sovereignty is the most potent attractor, as it mirrors the beast's self-containment, while his conscious choices demonstrate the prince's respect. This is the core of the strategy. Provide the public self with unshakable respect, safety, and agency. Provide the private self with the thrilling, symbolic experience of surrender to a controlled, powerful force. The man who can do this becomes irreplaceable. He is the only one with the codes to both doors. If this shift in perspective is hitting home, you need to be sharing this. Find one other person who needs this understanding and send this to them. The comments are exploding with realization. Join them. Tell me what you're seeing now that you didn't before. Part 5. The fantasy spectrum and the responsibility of the integrated man. We must address the darkest corner of this psychological landscape, the fantasy of non-consent. Academic studies in human sexuality have consistently shown that fantasies involving elements of force, capture, or being overwhelmed are among the most prevalent for women. This is critical to understand. We are discussing fantasy, a mental simulation where the individual is the absolute director, producer, and star. It is a safe exploration of a loss of control where, paradoxically, she is in total control. In fantasy, the aggressor is always an idealized figure of ultimate desire. The psychological appeal is the complete abdication of responsibility. She can experience total submission without the guilt of consciously choosing it, because in the narrative, he was too overwhelming to resist. It is a psychological escape hatched from the pressures of the public self, which must constantly make choices and uphold an image. The integrated man understands the chasm between fantasy and reality. His supreme responsibility is to guard that boundary. He knows that real intimacy can involve role-playing these symbolic dynamics within a framework of enthusiastic, sober, and ongoing consent. This is often called consensual non-consent or power exchange dynamics, and they require immense communication, trust, and predefined boundaries. They are the conscious, mutual decision to play with fire in a fireproof room. The ancient strategist's lesson here is profound. He said a leader must know how not to be good when the situation demands it. Paraphrase for our context: do not let an abstract, rigid dogma about what you should be prevent you from embodying what the situation and connection authentically require. If her public self says she wants a sensitive conversationalist, which she does, for friendship and emotional bonding, but her private self melts when you are silently, intensely physical, you must learn to be both. If her social persona demands perfect equality in chores, which is just and fair, but her erotic psyche ignites when you confidently take the lead in the bedroom, you must learn to navigate both arenas without contradiction. Ignoring the private self create a bored, disconnected partner. Ignoring the public self creates an abused, traumatized victim. The master integrates both. Final chapter: the ultimate prize, integration and devotion. When a man successfully bridges this gap, he achieves something extraordinary. He is no longer dealing with a masked performer. He has met the whole person. In his presence, she does not have to choose between being the respected public figure and the secret, sensual self. She can be both, seamlessly. This feeling of being fully seen, fully accepted, and fully ignited is addictively rare. This is the source of legendary devotion. It is not born from perfect compliance to a list of demands from the public self. It is born from the profound liberation of being with someone who speaks the secret language of your private self, while honoring the dignity of your public self. He is the prince in the streets, the beast in the sheets, and more importantly, he is consciously, ethically, and skillfully in control of when and how each aspect is expressed. Women are not dirty. They are complex. They are multifaceted beings living in a society that often forces those facets into contradiction. Their minds contain multitudes, including shadowy corners of fantasy and desire that conflict with modern social programming. The man who can behold that complexity without flinching, who can engage with it without cruelty, and who can provide a safe space for its expression, holds a unique power. It is the power of ultimate intimacy. He gives her the freedom to be, without apology, her complete self. And that freedom is the most powerful aphrodisiac and binding agent in the human experience. If you've listened this far, you are not here for shortcuts. You are here for mastery. This was a map of the territory. The real work, the calibration, the self-development, the practice is yours. But now you have the map. Your next step is critical. Subscribe. The algorithms need to know you want this depth. What we've covered today is the tip of the iceberg. We have not yet dissected the linguistics of desire, the body language of true compliance versus resistance, the specific frameworks for initiating these dynamics ethically, or the advanced psychology of maintaining attraction across decades. This channel is your workshop for all of it. Like this video right now. Let me see your commitment to seeing clearly. Share it aggressively. Tag the man who needs this wake-up call, who's tired of frustration and ready for understanding. Go to the comments. I will be there. Ask your questions. Debate the points. This is a living discourse. Prove you are part of the few who dare to look behind the social mask. The journey to mastery starts with a single, deliberate step. Take it.